And we all know once they've got somebody, if the crime is heinous enough, then no matter who that person is, the whole nation, in fact the whole world, hates that person because of the nature of the crime. Think about the West Memphis 3. Think about, I'm going to give you examples of people who were found innocent and people who were found, people who were also found guilty. So think about Casey Anthony, think about Amanda Knox. And I think it's also if that person is from another place. So Amanda Knox was not from Italy, so she's public enemy number one. He's not from Coburg, is not from Idaho, he's not from Washington. You know, you found somebody who's not only apparently done these heinous crimes, heinous. Why can't I say it today? Suddenly it sounds weird. And not only has he supposedly committed these horrifying crimes, but he's also not from round here. He's a stranger. He's from other parts of the world. He's not local. Who else have we got? We have got we've got the Central Park Five, who were wrongfully convicted of raping and brutally attacking a jogger in Central Park. Turned out to be somebody else. But, you know, uproar. She was a blonde-haired white woman who was a professional. You know, she wasn't a marginalised person. She was in some respectable job, some sort of, I don't know if she was, I can't even remember if she was working, or I think she was. You know, she was some kind of professional type. And so, we call it middle class, you call it upper middle class, and I think it's different class system, really. So if it's a white woman, if it's a particularly brutal attack, and at the time it's to do with race and that, there was this was one of those cases that the nature of the case affected how the police treated these young men and how the case went. They were so incensed. The police were so angry and incensed and disgusted, and so was the public. So there was all this pressure that they made rash decisions. We've got OJ. Most people think it's a joke that he could be innocent, but there's plenty of reasons to look at his son, to be quite honest. But the nature of that crime, that's more like partly the nature of the crime and the fact that both parties, particularly OJ, was famous, so that's going to play into it, and class will play into it as well. There's interest on more than two sides here with, you've got 4 people, but you've also not only got 3 girls, you've also got a male, which makes it unusual, and Ethan's a particularly sporty male. So there's more male interest, I think, in this case than usual. Just America is quite big on sport. You guys, like I've noticed in true crime, I've seen this with a parent saying, but he was even interested in sports, when people are looking at her son accusingly, it's like that's a defence. But he was even interested in sports. He's not weird, you know. He's not a loner. He doesn't just look at his computer like psychopaths do. Even though psychopaths are people who completely blend into society, but there is a real sort of sporting culture in the USA. So there's an interest when something links with a sporting figure, and you could sort of think of Ethan to an extent as representing that. He is a bit. They've tried to portray him as a very all-American boy, and maybe he is. And I don't want to cast shade or anything, but they keep putting pictures. The media keeps showing pictures of him when he was younger, and when he was more fresh-faced, and I don't know if that's just to create more sympathy, or because his appearance later is less sympathetic. I don't know why they keep picking, or if they just like to, the media just pick the picture they think is the prettiest. I don't know, but they have made that decision, and it's not just one media outlet, it's many media outlets. Continuing on, obviously another public figure, so this isn't so much how shocking the crime was, how public the crime was, and heinous actually, because the top of his head was blown off. So although it's gun and not a knife attack, it was public, and he publicly lost the top of his head. It's pretty horrific. And yeah, so this guy, who knows with that, but he was roped in pretty quick, wasn't he? He's never had a trial, but we've decided he's the killer, and I'm not sure that should happen when somebody hasn't been tried. To me, he was a suspect. And I mentioned the West Memphis 3, if any cases to do with children, but particularly a case that is this egregious, like what was done to those 3 boys, and then the condition that they were found in, which confused things to make it appear even worse than it actually was. To the 3 younger boys, obviously I'm referring to, and then what's done to these boys in the end. But this case was completely tried in the media, and there is still, I've seen documents and things on this. Jeremy Bamber, White House Farm, they recently created there was an ITV drama which misrepresented it. It wasn't accurate, and I might in the description put a link actually to a website where you can get a more balanced view on what happened, and it's got all documents and things on that website. And interesting, because this guy was very quickly and he was basically nail in the coffin, because his girlfriend, who he just dumped, as in just dumped before she decided she was going to shop him, she told the police that he had planned it and had planned to get somebody else to do it. And to be honest, I could buy that somebody else did it, but I find it harder to buy that this guy did. But I still find it hard to buy, to be honest, to an extent. And that goes against what almost all of the UK think, because it's just been tried in the media. They only know what they've been told in the media. They've decided before he was ever tried. Same as with the Koberger case. So how can you get a fair trial? How could any of those people who've made their mind up before the trials started, how can anyone be on a jury? A jury is even a good idea. Like, there's talk of the what what sort of a benefit professional juries might be. And I agree. I think you need to, they're just pulling the wool over people's eyes, and they know that they can. Yeah, I can't remember what else I was going to say about that, but I will put it into the description. And then Wayne Williams, there was uproar in Atlanta at the time because lots of black young boys were going missing, and it was horrifying. The community was terrified. Parents were just, God, I can't even imagine what they went through, those parents. But that seemed like it was a big operation, to be honest. And this guy, he might have been a pedo or a perv or whatever, or he might have been part of it, but I very much doubt he was the sole participant in that whole thing. In fact, there's even sort of there's even evidence of sort of white nationalist, Ku Klux Klan. I'll have to try and look it up for you because I don't want to give you the wrong information, but some involvement there with some specific members of the Ku Klux Klan in that area. But I will try and make sure I put any information that I'm alluding to into the description, and I will always try and do that, and if I don't, you can always ask me for it. I mentioned Casey Anthony, and obviously there was, people decided straight away that she was guilty. I don't know, her story did change a lot, but I do not know what on earth was going on there. I have read the other book, actually, and I think it's worth reading. It's always worth reading the other side of the coin, I think, and that's not something I used to do, but I actually find it fascinating now to read both sides, and it can be very enlightening. So I will probably put the title of that book into the description, and obviously JonBenet Ramsey. Now, imagine if they had somebody for that. That person would be strung up practically. I mean, that person would not have got a fair trial, especially not at the time. So, because they would certainly be public enemy number one against children. That has if it's a heinous crime, if it's against children, if it's a sexual heinous crime against children, if it's a sexual heinous crime against a child that's practically a celebrity and is white and is girl and is blonde, and I'm not saying that to have any judgment on white blonde girls, we're all born how we're born, but it's the people consuming the information and the people putting out the information to the public that are to be held accountable for that. And then 9/11, I mean, can't get much more egregious than that one, really. Well, you can actually, because probably just as bad things has happened in other countries, and we've probably not batted an eyelid about it. But that's not to diminish how horrific this was. But if the president said this is Al Qaeda, then straight away, the heinousness of that crime, there's no question, everybody believes it. Whoever he'd said had done that, we would have automatically believed that was the case, and straight away, everybody hates anybody associated with that group of people. So anybody Islamic was public enemy number one then. So, people, it's the heinousness of a crime, the egregiousness of a crime can have a lot to do with whether people, public interest, and whether people decide immediately that the person that the police have identified as being responsible immediately people think they've got the right guy, no question. Immediately people hate that person. They hate that person's face. They want to rip their eyeballs out, and any other balls off. Yeah.